If you read Shane Parrish's Farnham Street, you probably know that he has a big passion for mental models and has collected enough of them that he wrote a series of books called The Great Mental Models. In fact, there are 4 volumes. I've listed them here: General Thinking Concepts, Physics, Chemistry, and Biology, Systems and Mathematics, and Economics and Art. Now, I have not bought these volumes, nor have I tried to scan them or somehow or other absorb what they contain. But in parallel, over the last many years, I've been using this brain software that I'm showing you to collect my own list of useful thinking frameworks and mental models, and I'd like to give you a tour of them. This is software that I did not create. It's a little company based in LA called The Brain, thebrain.com. Mine seems to be the world's largest openly available man-made mind map that I or anybody I know have heard of. And I want to partly show you this to show you what it's like for knowledge to accumulate. I've been adding, so I added the Thought Useful Thinking Frameworks in October of 2015. And let's dive in. So let's go someplace that might be pretty broadly understood, like design methodologies. Here's a collection of different design methodologies: interactive design, idealized redesign, rapid prototyping. But I want to go a little deeper into design thinking, which is a pretty familiar design methodology. Here you can see that design thinking was built from human-centered design and empathic design, and I think that you'll find Dorothy Leonard and other people, here's Dorothy, are sort of connected to the precursors of design thinking. So there's a little bit of genealogy for how design thinking shows up in the world. And then I've got a whole series of things, including some critiques of design thinking. So here are articles about, hey, it's not a miracle cure, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, under design thinking, I've got a thought called Articles About Design Thinking. Every one of these books and articles does something to mention design thinking and goes into it. So why design thinking needs systems thinking, the design way, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go back to useful thinking frameworks. If we head down to decision-making models, we can then look around a little bit and find the OODA loop, for example, which is observe, orient, decide, and act, created by John Boyd, who is a bit of a crazy maverick fighter pilot. Boyd was also a brilliant military mind, frankly, and so are these people. Just to sort of randomly pick a place to go in, here are Moltke the Elder and Moltke the Younger, involved in the planning of World War I, for example, and before that, the Franco-Prussian War. But Moltke is known for saying, no plan of operations extends with certainty beyond the first encounter with the enemy's main strength, which I have neatly connected to everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth, famously said by Mike Tyson, who is a little bit like Yogi Berra, a source of interesting little bits of wisdom. If we go back to decision-making models, another really interesting one is the Cynefin framework, created by Dave Snowden and his collaborators some years ago. Cynefin is a really interesting way of seeing the context within which you are operating, whether it is simple, complex, complicated, or chaotic. I think that these days, given what's happening in the world, understanding Cynefin can be pretty useful. Here's Dave Snowden. These are videos that he has appeared in, for example, and articles written about him and by him. Here's a book about the Cynefin framework. He runs a company called Cognitive Edge, and I happened to meet him at a dinner in 2008. So I've got 2008 September dinner with Snowden. If we head back to useful thinking frameworks, let's pick something a little more obscure. How about blind variations and selective retention, BVSR, a framework created by Donald Campbell about creativity and discovery. And Campbell is also the creator of Campbell's Law, that basically says the more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision-making, the more subject it'll be to corruption pressures and the more apt it'll be to distort and corrupt the social processes it is intended to monitor. Goodhart, Charles Goodhart, creates Goodhart's Law, which kind of is related to this and maybe sort of a synthesis of it. He says any metric eventually becomes a target that measures lose their information content. All interesting when you're busy planning KPIs and other ways of building systems where you can measure people's performance to reward them in different ways. Going back to useful thinking frameworks, Let's look at analytic frameworks. Here are a bunch of acronyms some of you will know. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. STEEP are the social, technological, economic, ecological, and political changes that you might look at in analyzing a situation. PEST, political, economic, social, cultural, and technological analysis. And by the way, anywhere you see an icon like this is a link to the Wikipedia page for PEST, the Wikipedia page for SWOT. It will take my browser, your browser, directly to this. I'll call your attention to DSRP, which is Distinctions, Systems, Relationships, and Perspectives, created by the Cabreras at the Cabrera Research Lab, Derek and Laura Cabrera, who have been trying to help people think about how the world functions. And there's a similar framework called CDE, which is Containers, Differences, and Exchanges, created by Glenda O. Yang at the Human Systems Dynamics Institute. And these both are really useful frameworks for assessing a system and talking about its different parts and relationships. Going back to analytic frameworks, and when I'm going back, I'm reaching down here to the breadcrumbs trail. As you'll see, the things I'm clicking on are scrolling off to the left as I click on them here. So if we go to analytic frameworks, we can find TIMN, which is David Ronfeldt's Tribes, Institutions, Markets, and Networks models. And this is one of multiple models and theories of individual and social dynamics. A fun place is theories of everything. There are many different kinds of theories of everything. Some of them are physics. So here's actually a small collection of unified field, unification, a different theory of everything, unified field theories, the theory of general relativity, the grand unified theories, etc., etc. But if we go back, we'll find uniformitarianism or the Russell cosmology, Christopher Alexander's books, The Nature of Order, The Great Chain of Being, way back from Arthur Oncken Lovejoy. There's a whole lot of interesting things in theories of everything. If I go back up to useful thinking frameworks and mental models, we can head toward future tools and techniques. So here we go, futures tools and techniques. Here are forecasting models, foresight analysis, futures literacy, planning tools. We can also then find group process tools and techniques. Here you will find a whole set of ice-breaking techniques, decision-making models. Let's go there. Electoral voting systems. We're back here to decision-making models where the OODA loop was. And then an interesting place to go, again, a home for useful thinking frameworks and mental models, are the yamas and niyamas out of yoga. The yamas and niyamas come out of Patanjali's work back before yoga was a physical practice. It was a mental practice and a thought framework. Yamas are abstinences like aparigraha or non-grasping, letting go, non-possession. Its opposite would be something like hoarding. And then the niyamas are observances, things you do want to do. So generosity, dana, hri, acceptance of one's past, santosha, contentment, svadhyaya, self-study. That's a brief tour of useful thinking frameworks and mental models. You can learn more about how to use my brain at jerrysbrain.com. I'll put that link and also a link directly to this thought in my brain in the post that accompanies this video. I have found doing this work to be super productive and exciting, and I hope you find some of that as well. Thanks for watching.